I'm Aaron Porras, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Prime Minister of India makes history as he steps onto Israeli soil. Israel's Interior Minister makes some wild accusations about Jewish conversions, and Britney Spears rocks the Holy Land even harder than anybody expected. Stay tuned for the latest news in Israel. The Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has just arrived at Ben Gurion Airport in Israel, kicking off his three-day visit. And for the 60,000 citizens of Indian descent living in Israel, it's a stunning moment.
It's the first visit by a sitting Indian head of state to Israel, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has cleared his schedule to accompany Modi through most of the entirety of his visit throughout the country. Normally, only United States presidents get that treatment. Unlike most world leaders, however, Modi will not be meeting with Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas or even visiting Ramallah. Netanyahu says that the visit is the product of cooperation between him and Modi, as well as growing India-Israel relations, and of course the visit also coincides with the 25th anniversary of renewed ties between the two world powers.
מחר יגיע לישראל נרנדרה מודי ידידי, ראש ממשלת הודו, הדמוקרטיה הגדולה ביותר בעולם. זהו ביקור היסטורי וראשון של ראש ממשלה של הודו בישראל אחרי 70 שנה. וזה ביטוי לכך שהיחסים בינינו לבין הודו הולכים ומתהדקים בשנים האחרונות. זה פרי מדיניות יזומה שלי ושלו.
In June, the Indian embassy in Tel Aviv celebrated International Yoga Day, with thousands of Israelis filling Rabin Square to practice yoga and take in traditional Indian dances. While Israel's Indian diaspora isn't as large as the UK's or America's, it is still sizable, especially in cities like Jerusalem and Beersheba.
Now, it's the 4th of July, and United States Ambassador to Israel David Friedman just hosted a festive celebration at his house in Herzliya. But Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, instead of joining in the festivities, took the opportunity to defend his policies on the Western Wall. Netanyahu is saying he remains committed to making every Jew feel at home in Israel, including at the Kotel. All we need is patience and perseverance. The majority of his remarks yesterday were focused on the United States-Israel relationship and Donald Trump's visit to the Holy Land. The Prime Minister says that Israel will always remember that Trump made his first foreign trip as president to Israel, and that as the first sitting United States president to visit the Western Wall, he touched Israeli hearts. Most of all, the date made the Prime Minister remember the sacrifice of his brother, Yonatan Netanyahu.
This brought together the United States, and on July 4th, 1776, the United States was born. A nation conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men, they later added all women too, are created equal. 200 years later, to the day, on July 4th, 1976, I received the shattering news that my brother Yoni was killed, securing the freedom of the hostages held at Entebbe. This was the darkest moment of my life, the life of my brother, most of all my parents, and I've always remembered the fallen sons of Israel, the grief that accompanies the parents of our young heroes, like Adar Goldin and Oron Shaul, and we are committed to bring them home. We will bring them home.
Friedman's 4th of July party also set some precedents. It was the first time that a U.S. ambassador to Israel invited settler leaders to an official event. Previously, settler leaders had only been invited to events at the United States consulate in the Israeli capital of Jerusalem. Now, the Israeli Interior Minister and leader of the ultra-Orthodox Shas party is now attacking Israeli Reform rabbis, saying that they would convert illegal African infiltrators if they could. That's right, Aryeh Deri is saying that if he recognizes every Reform conversion, there will be no end. He's also accusing Reform leader Gilad Kariv of wanting to join the center-left Zionist Union Party, as well as wanting to convert illegal migrants from countries like Eritrea and Somalia. At the weekly meeting of the Shas party, Deri told party members to imagine what will happen here in a year or two if the keys to the law of return are in these people's hands, referring to Kariv and American Reform leader Rick Jacobs. Kariv says Deri's attacks are fake news and that Deri has apparently forgotten that the Torah commanded us to avoid lies. He says that the Supreme Court has ruled that illegal residents of Israel cannot convert to Judaism. Along with that, he points out that the reform and conservative movements, quote, committed to court to a policy of conversion under which we do not convert foreign workers, tourists, or asylum seekers, end quote. In a controversial move, it's looking like Israel will approve the construction of 4 homes for Jewish residents in the Arab neighborhood of Sheikh Jarrah. But right-wing activists say that due to the family history, they have the right to live there too. The buildings are included in the plans for around 1,800 new homes in Jerusalem, included within the northeastern neighborhood of Piskat Ze'ev. It's one of the largest housing projects in recent years in post-67 Jerusalem neighborhoods, since pressure from former U.S. President Barack Obama brought in a de facto building freeze in the area. The buildings in Sheikh Jarrah specifically, however, will be on property that was owned by Jewish residents of Jerusalem before 1948. According to the 1950 absentee property law, as long as the Palestinian owners of the property are compensated, the Jewish heirs of the families who were forced out have a right to reclaim their property. However, in 1988, the High Court of Justice ruled that the Palestinians inhabiting the properties had protected tenant status. Since then, it's been a legal battle between Jewish and Palestinian activists over the fate of their family homes. A top Hamas terrorist who is thought to have masterminded the kidnapping and murder of 3 Israeli teens in 2014 has now been moved to Lebanon after being expelled from the Gulf state of Qatar.
We are hearing reports that Saleh al-Aruri was expelled from Qatar in early June as the Gulf country's diplomatic crisis with its neighbors began. Days later, Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman alleged that Aruri had taken shelter in Lebanon, where he has resumed planning terror attacks against Israel. Israel's Channel 2 News is reporting that Aruri and 2 other senior Hamas figures are now residing in the Hezbollah stronghold of Dahieh in southern Beirut. And according to Lieberman, Aruri is also attempting to boost the relationship between Hamas and Hezbollah. He's calling for Washington to pressure the Lebanese government into expelling the Hamas members, but given how weak the Lebanese government is compared to Hezbollah, the chances of that aren't great. Aruri was released from an Israeli prison in 2010 as part of preparations for the Gilad Shalit prisoner exchange. In the exchange, Israel traded over 1,000 terrorists for the lone Israeli hostage.
The discovery of a burned city and human remains in the Canaanite city of Gezer in the Judean foothills are now giving us a new perspective on the land of Israel before the Israelites. ILTV's Max Keisler has more. Max, what does this tell us about the ancient Israelites?
So there's an ancient Egyptian text which talks about the pharaoh Merneptah destroying the city of Gezer around 1200 BCE. Now this same text is also the first mention we have of Israel as an area or tribe that the pharaoh also destroyed. So on one level, this is confirmation that the pharaoh was here, but we already knew that.
How could we know that?
Because this is the history of the land of Israel and Canaan. It was a place that was caught between empires. Sometimes Egypt would extort it, sometimes Assyria would dominate it, but it was almost always under the thumb of an imperial power. In the Bible, when we see an independent Israelite kingdom, that's just the short period of time when there was independence, when the great powers were weaker. When the great powers were stronger, we see stuff like the destruction of Jerusalem by Babylon and the destruction of Gezer by Egypt.
All right, let's check out your report.
Before the tribes of Israel carved out their territory in the central Judean highlands, before the first temple was built in Jerusalem, before the earliest prophets ever spoke to kings, the Canaanite city-states of the land paid tribute to Egypt. They were vassals, and the discovery of the ruins of Gezer is giving us a shocking glimpse into what happened when they rebelled around 1200 BCE. Archaeologists have found a meter-thick layer of destruction in the city, including a burned building with the charred remains of a child and adult inside. Likely, the inhabitants of Gezer rebelled against Egypt, and they brought down the might of the Egyptian army on their heads. It would be several years before Egypt lost control over Canaan, and the Israelites stepped into history.
Now, last week we told you about an American rabbinical school organizing trips to Israel and how that one incredible story led to another even more amazing story. I'm very pleased to welcome back into the studio today Rabbi Liat Yardeni, Dean of the Rabbinical School at the Academy for Jewish Religion, California, and Rabbi Yocheved Mintz of Congregation Pnei Tikva, Las Vegas, to discuss a revolutionary new treatment for Parkinson's at the Rambam Hospital in Haifa that was just administered to Rabbi Mintz herself. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Our pleasure.
Pleasure.
Now, to begin, I mean, yeah, this trips that you've been organizing, you know, what's unique about your academy and all that?
So the Academy for Jewish Religion California has the ability to ordain cantors, rabbis, and chaplains. and in a very unique way of both spirituality, holistic way to engage everyone in a very pluralistic way. We're about to launch an additional component of online classes. But what's very unique is our new 1-month trip to Israel. On this experiential trip of Torah, Avodah, Gemilut Chasadim, Yocheved, one of our ordained rabbis in our institution, was able to hear about this Parkinson's disease cure. And we are so proud that the Academy for Jewish Religion is able to be a matchmaker between a disease and a cure. And it feels like Am Yisrael Chai. We are here.
So yeah, so it was through this organization that you came with the group, and you know, how did you hear about this Parkinson's treatment? How did that come about?
First of all, it's not a cure. I still have Parkinson's, but it is a procedure, a focused ultrasound sonication procedure, where they literally give you a Lochen cup. They put a hole in your brain in the specific spot that is controlling the tremors. And for the past 4 years, for instance, I haven't been able to hold a glass of water or carefully put on my makeup or shake a person's hand without my hand shaking back. And now, both my hand and my leg. My leg also, I realized after I was off the medications that my leg had, that the medications had been working.
You had just gotten used to, the tremors from before. Right. So how did you hear about this incredible treatment? How did that come about?
I've kind of heard about it, but it was through the Academy for Jewish Religion, California. On this trip, we came to Rambam Hospital to see how the hospital does the amazing work of becoming an emergency hospital underground within 70 hours. And while the doctor was speaking to us, he casually mentioned that they're doing cutting-edge work in Parkinson's. And I put my hand up and I said, I have Parkinson's.
Just casually mentioned it.
But Rabbi Liat was really very instrumental in making sure that that happened.
Yeah, you did a lot of work behind the scenes to make this happen.
It was my great pleasure to do the research 6 months ago and to know that Rambam had these 94% success rate in curing the tremors, never to be seen again. And I wanted them to mention that Parkinson's is an option, not knowing that Yocheved is going to be that brave to say, right here, right now, get me an appointment. I'm ready to get rid of the tremors that were so debilitating for the last 4 years of her life.
It's amazing.
It was amazing, and the procedure itself was, the team is amazing. It was headed by Dr. Ilana Schlesinger, and she's quite a fantastic character. But everybody was wonderful at Rambam, and the procedure itself was a little scary, but the results were worth it.
Yeah, I mean, no, you look wonderful. You just look so happy right now. I mean, just in the 2 days, it's an incredible transformation from last week. You know, and I remember we sat down, we talked, we got to know each other, you know, behind the scenes, and yeah, the tremor, they were noticeable. They were there, and right now you're just...
I'm fine. I am fine now. The experience itself was something that most people can't even begin to imagine. First of all, you have to wear a stereotactic halo, which makes you look something like a cross between Frankenstein and Hannibal Lecter. And you're in an MRI machine for about 3.5 to 5 hours, which is difficult. And each time they go deeper and deeper, and with the sonication burning, and so that they don't go too far, they take you out of and test to make sure that something has happened. And I watched how I was able to hold a piece of paper. Like I haven't been able to hold a piece of paper straight, which is pretty important for a rabbi.
What was that feeling like? You know, in that moment.
I was elated. I was so grateful. I could feel the prayers of people from all over the world. And, you know, Baruch Rofei Cholim. It was pretty terrific. The experience itself of feeling the ultrasound going into the brain, the only way I can explain it is like a Chagall painting.
Right.
You feel like you're floating and flipping backwards. And I could have just flipped backwards and gone off into oblivion. It was not unpleasant. It was It was truly a miracle.
So a pleasant backflip and no more tremors. That's a pretty good deal.
Amen.
Coming to the Holy Land, you get a nice trip, you see some beautiful things, and you get this amazing, incredible treatment.
You know, what's amazing is after being with your Chavit for 3.5 weeks on this trip, to see how difficult it was for her to send a text or to ask me to dial a number for her, and to eat a salad sometimes are just so difficult. And to see the difference, Baruch Hashem, with before and after, within 48 hours. Thank God for Rambam Hospital.
Incredible. So thank God for Rambam Hospital. I'm so happy that they were able to do the things that they are able to do.
too.
And I'm sure that this will greatly influence your future trips. So I'm sure that is an amazing time. Unfortunately,
That's right.
I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have today, but I would love to
fine.
continue this conversation.
Thank you. The
I'm out of
Academy for
time.
Jewish Religion will continue many more Israeli trips to make more miracles.
I'm glad to hear it. Thank you so much for for coming in and just
My pleasure.
thank you so much. The USS George H.W. Bush has docked off the coast of Haifa for the last few days now, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu went to visit the United States Navy sailors yesterday in the first visit by a world leader to the Nimitz-class ship.
Netanyahu and his wife Sarah landed on the deck of the aircraft carrier on a military helicopter, after which they were given a tour of the 333-meter-long nuclear-powered ship. The George H.W. Bush can carry a crew of over 5,000 people and around 90 fighter jets and helicopters. The Prime Minister was quite impressed by the ship and had positive words for the crew.
The brave crew that works off this ship helps keep the world secure from the threat of terror. This carrier has served as a base for airstrikes against the Islamic State, and the war against ISIS should be seen for what it is, a clash between good and evil.
The George H.W. Bush is too large to enter the Haifa port, but reportedly a number of United States sailors have found their way into Israel to enjoy the onshore nightlife. Still, they've got an important job in the Eastern Mediterranean, and they're going to have to get back to work soon.
This aircraft carrier and this air wing have been a large part of the war against ISIS over the last 5 months that we've been deployed. We've conducted sustained operations as part of Operation Inherent Resolve, countering ISIS in both Iraq and Syria.
Israelis are running up their electricity bills, trying to stay cool in the intense summer heat.
In the last 2 days, paramedics have treated 367 people for a combination of heat-related illnesses like exhaustion, dizziness, and dehydration. On Sunday alone, Israeli demand for air conditioning hit 12,438 megawatts, just a little shy of the all-time record set in September 9, 2015. Temperatures during the day in the center of Israel have reached and hovered around 89.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 32 degrees Celsius, and in the southern tip of Israel, Eilat, temperatures have reached as high as 112 degrees Fahrenheit or 45 degrees Celsius. The moral of the story, make sure you're drinking a lot of water.
Speaking of the crazy heat waves, for athletes, hikers, soldiers, and just about everybody else, dehydration can be a major problem, especially when you live in a place like Israel, where temperatures can reach as high as 100 degrees Fahrenheit on a near daily basis. Well, one Israeli startup has just come up with a new non-invasive way to measure your hydration levels and keep you running cool. Joining me now in the studio is Yossi Chazan, CEO of S-Zone. So tell me, first of all, welcome. How does this work?
Okay, so this is the device. And like thermometer, you just put it on the tongue, and in 5 seconds, it will give you the reading, if you are hydrated properly or not.
Just like that, you stick it in your tongue, that's it?
Yes, just like that, for 5 seconds, and there will be indication here. If you want, you can transfer all the information to a smartphone, so you can collect the history and look at the trends, and it will tell you immediately if you are in a safe zone or not.
So this is like Internet of Things, you're connecting to everything, you're really bringing health to everybody's hands. So what inspired the creation of this device?
So it started, I'm a marathon runner, and it's something that always bothered me. If I'm properly hydrated, if I need to start drinking before the exercise, and how much I need to drink. And this is something that bothered me all the time. And what I figure out is that for many chronic illnesses, this becomes a very critical issue to become dehydrated properly. For example, people with kidney disease, they need to keep a special diet, need to keep their electrolyte in a very well balanced, And if they don't, actually they put their life in dangerous. So this is not only for sport, this is also for people with chronic illnesses like kidney disease, heart failure, and diabetes.
It's incredible. So this is, I mean, this is really gonna, it's not just, you know, oh, I don't feel right, maybe I'll check my hydration. It's like, this is a very serious need for people who can't tell.
Absolutely it is. Absolutely it is. And we have a couple of versions. We have a version that you can use for clinic or for home use, and you have a small version that you can actually run with it and do all kind of athlete type sports.
So what method is this, you know, replacing or innovating upon? Is, you know, what is the current method of testing somebody's hydration level?
So today the best practice is to take a blood measurement and urine test. The problem is that this can be done in a hospital or in a clinic. It cannot be done in a doctor's office. It cannot be done at home. It takes time until you have the results. Yeah. This can be done on the spot when you are running, when you do your stuff, or at home by yourself.
And so final words before we run out of time, you know, when and where will this be available?
So right now we have an agreement to start clinical trial in Rambam Hospital in Israel.
Congratulations.
And thank you very much. And this, I believe, will be in the market in less than 12 months after we finish the clinical trial and get FDA and CE approval.
All right, well, good luck to you. I wish you absolutely the best. It sounds like Rambam is doing some amazing things, and I'm glad that they're pairing up with you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
In an effort to make good on her claims that she does not lip sync at her performances, Britney Spears showed Tel Aviv last night just how hard she works even during a crazy heat wave. And ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh joins me in the studio to give us the rundown. Emmanuel?
Yes.
Join me.
Tell me. Will.
So did she or did she not lip sync? This is the major question.
Okay, well, first of all, she buzzed through her main hits and some less popular songs. She went through that for her performance. It was close to impossible for the 55,000 fans that came to visit and came to cheer her on.
Was that all?
To notice if there was lip sync or if it was. If there wasn't, the camera stayed away from close-ups, that's for sure. And she sounded a little fried in her main song, Toxic, but then she sounded pitch perfect in her other songs, so it's a little unanswered.
Maybe that's a sign of nature, you know, rather than
sounding
automation.
fried a little bit and then pitch perfect.
If you're bouncing back and forth, maybe there's some play going on in there.
You never know, you never know.
All right, well, let's check out your report.
Yeah.
Thousands of fans who paid upwards of 330 shekels per ticket were just happy to see their childhood pop princess strutting her stuff on the Tel Aviv stage. Who can believe it's actually been 19 years since Spears began her worldwide career as a little schoolgirl in Hit Me Baby One More Time, gracing us with 2 decades of controversial headlines. One thing is for sure, aside from all the crazy costume changes and dramatic turns on stage, it is clear to see that she may have been busting her ass out there, but her backup dancers were busting theirs twice as hard. As for Spears' fans, they didn't seem to buy the whole smoke and mirror-filled show, at times rocking out to the beat of hits they recognized, while at others barely even paying attention. Whatever is said about Spears, there's no denying that she's one of the most talked about artists of all time, starting her career as the best-selling album by a teenage solo artist after debuting Oops, I Did It Again in 2000. Britney, you will always be a star.
Enroll in eTeacher's online Hebrew courses and quickly discover that it creates the deepest connection to Israel that you could ever imagine.
And now for our Hebrew word of the day. There is something everyone needs to start doing more often, and it's fun, and it puts a smile on your face. Our word today is lirkod, which means to dance. Emmanuel, when was the last time you rakadet or danced?
Okay, I think the last time I literally rakadeti, or the last time I danced, was 10 minutes ago. Post hair and makeup, you know, I get very excited.
I didn't get to see.
But I think the last time I went out and rakadeti was at the Pride Parade.
That
I know
fun.
This is something you like to do, isn't it?
I think we all know, this is a well-established fact, that I'm a very super serious person.
Yeah.
And to lirkod, to dance, is not something that I really do.
I'm pretty sure I saw you roked after your 5th cup of coffee in the morning.
I mean, yeah, you could call that.
That's safe to say.
You can call that a rikud.
We'll keep it a secret, though.
Exactly. But, you know, Emmanuel, just remember that some things are best just not said. You just gotta dance.
Gotta dance.
You just gotta dance. All right. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight, the sky should be partly cloudy with a low of 78 or 26 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow, you can expect a slight drop in temperatures with a high of 87 or 31 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.51 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. I'm Aaron Porras, and thanks for watching.